I never said I was deep, but I am profoundly shallow. My lack of knowledge is vast, and my horizons are narrow. I never said I was big.
Aaron in Perth.
I never said that I was.
Hi.
Yes, Aaron.
Hi. I'm a Conservative voter, but I really do mourn the collapse of the Labour Party, because the balance in the political system is completely gone.
That makes little sense. You're a Conservative voter, but you're concerned about the collapse of the competition.
Yeah.
You'd think you'd be delighted.
You would think that, but you can't. There's a balance. Like, there's a balance in politics, and when there isn't a balance...
There is no balance in our politics. One party gets to rule them all. You get 100% of the power with only 43% of the vote.
Yeah, but at that time, now the Labour Party's got such a low chance of winning the next time that they I don't know how to put it. They can push the envelope further than I personally would like.
Well, why are you a Conservative voter then?
Well, that's a good question.
Well, why are you? What's the answer?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah, just kind of always been kind of... I don't know. In the beginning, yeah, but now I don't... Because I like them better than the Labour Party.
But what is it you like about them? What's the answer to the question? Why do you vote Conservative?
Oh
my God.
The lesser of two evils?
But why do you say that?
What? That's a good question.
Are you kidding me? You don't think about it at all? You just go and vote for a party and you don't even think about why you're doing it?
No. You go and you vote for a party, but you don't. You vote for a party because you think they're the best party.
Yeah, but
you don't
best in what way?
You don't think they're... Well, because you like most of their policies better
like
than
what?
the
Well,
other
name one. What policies?
I live in Scotland, and I'm a unionist.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the main ones.
Right. And do you think that under the Boris Johnson leadership that Scotland is more or less likely to remain part of the United Kingdom?
Less, probably.
Right. So how's voting Conservative working out for you?
Not well, but it doesn't. But what I'm saying is,
who are you going to vote for next time?
Well, not the SNP. So I'm stuck.
Who are you going to vote for next time?
Probably Conservative again.
Okay. Good decision there, Aaron. As long as you've thought it through. Chingford, John.
Hello, Nick. I think some of these people can make decisions for themselves at the end of the day. When it comes to strikes, and the strike action that's happening is affecting people, not just in the offices and not just the big bosses. It's affecting the small people as well. And that's what you have to understand, why the action shouldn't be taking place in the first instance. It's because it's causing mayhem, disruption, and it won't change things. For somebody around here wants to change the narrative doesn't need to change, and things should remain as they are. I mean, yes, we're all having a problem with paying our bills, things like that. But do you think if you go on strike, it isn't going to increase percentage on inflation from maybe 13 to 33%? And if it
hang on. If you go on strike, it's going to increase inflation. Did you say?
Well, it's already happening now, isn't it?
Yeah, but inflation is already with us, but people haven't had inflation-busting pay rises. So it's not the pay rises that are causing inflation. Inflation pre-exists that.
It doesn't help the problem, though, does it? If people don't turn up to work, nothing's going to be done. Nothing. No money's going to be put into the system. Nothing's going to be put into the economy. At the end of the day, somebody wants to change the narrative here, and it's not the way it's going to work.
But what do you mean? What do you mean by change the narrative? From what to what?
What? So that everyone just starts going on strike. You know, I'm working 6 days a week. I'm self-employed. I can't just go on a strike because if I do that, I don't get paid.
Well, yeah, but you're self-employed.
Yeah, so why is it any different? I still have to pay my taxes. I still have to go out there and make a living, earn money, you know? And if you work for a company, you get the unions to represent you, well, that's good enough for you. If you've got that opportunity to do so, then so be it. But at the end of the day, don't affect everyone else by doing so.
Right, but you don't have to tell me what you do for a living, but you, as a self-employed person, could put your prices up.
Yeah, I could put my price up if I want to, but I don't want to, because at the end of the day, I want a fair business and a fair game.
Okay, but
that's what it should be all about.
Right, but that's good for you, but presumably you don't want to put your prices up, so that implies that you are earning enough to have a comfortable living.
I wouldn't say it's comfortable, would you? I don't think anyone's comfortable at the moment. I don't want to call it comfortable. I mean, it's good enough for me, and what's good enough for me is good enough for me, and everyone else could feel the same way about it. But at the end of the day...
But that sounds like I'm all right, Jack. You're doing okay, so nobody else should want to like keep up with inflation at the very least, and beat it at best. Just a cough. Okay. I thought I had hoped you might come back on that point, but never mind. Thanks, John. So here's that famous early warning signs of fascism poster from the American Holocaust Memorial. Let's see how many we can tick off, shall we? Isn't this fun?
No.
There's 12 early warnings of fascism. Powerful and continuing nationalism. Oh, you bet we've got a lot of that. Anybody that's not got at least 2 flags in their windows is an enemy of the people. So, yeah, that's a big tick there. Nationalism. Disdain for human rights. Yeah. In the process of removing them as I speak. Identification of enemies as a unifying cause. Well, that would be the EU.
Boo!
Rampant sexism. Well, that's a no, really. But this is an old list. So I think we can replace rampant sexism with rampant anti-wokeism and a vehement dislike of caring for the less well-off, others. So, yeah, that's a yes. Controlled mass media. Yep. I mean, whichever parts of the media is not personally controlled by billionaire offshore non-dom media magnates is either in the process of being sold off or has conservative people actually running it. Obsession with national security. Not sure about it's an obsession. Religion and government intertwined. Well, kind of always has been. I mean, they got permanent seats in the House of Lords. And members of the cabinet are always banging on about how they are guided by their faith. Yeah, right. Just think, what would Jesus do? And they will do the opposite in any given circumstance, while saying that they're doing God's work. I'm not saying that they're telling mistruths, but corporate power protected. I don't think we need to dwell on that one. You betcha. Labour power suppressed.
Correct.
It's almost like it's been written this week, this list, ain't it? This is the famous early warning signs of fascism poster from the American Holocaust Memorial. Labour power suppressed. Disdain for intellectuals and the arts. Yeah. In fact, Fishy just said it, it was on the news just now. He said he's going to look into degrees, and if you don't get a graduate job at the end of it, that's it, it's out. Which will be all of the arts degrees. But, nothing to worry about. It's not like this country is known for its arts. It's not like tourists come here for, the music and the theatre and the galleries and the museums and all of that sort of stuff. No, I'm sure they come here to stare at the Union Jack. Pet a bulldog. 2 more. Obsession with crime and punishment. You betcha. And here's the biggie. Rampant cronyism and corruption. So, which ones are we not ticking there? Obsession with national security. And that's it. Well, I don't know about you, but I think I'll decide to freak out now to save time later. Hammersmith, Grish.
Yes. Hello, Nick. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Yes, this political situation, so to speak, with this so-called Prime Minister, so-called Boris Johnson, I'm so glad that he has gone, to be honest with you.
He ain't gone yet.
Well, he's not gone. Well, he's on his way. And they've got this new voting for the new someone to take his place. Am I correct?
Is this a listener with material? Am I correct?
Well, from what I'm aware, he's resigned. He's gone.
All right.
Well, am I correct? And I don't pay close attention to the news, but there's the scandals that occurred in the past. With this the journalist woman. This guy's an awful person. Last 2 years, the mismanagement of all this corona. You don't have an idea anything that's going on.
All right. Thanks for the news, Grish. I don't know. I'm going to use my gut instincts.
Warning.
Camden. Hello, Ellie.
Oh, hi, Nick. I got through to you at last.
We're here together.
Congratulations. What is that racket? Hi, I wanted to tell you three
Racket?
things. Well, it was a very pleasant noise to some, but I didn't like it.
You didn't like this? How can anyone not like that?
Well, I didn't like it compared to what I've got to say.
Well, maybe I prefer it to what you've got to say.
Will we find out?
I guess so.
Okay. I can tell you three things that Keir Starmer has done, which have been totally neglected.
Go on.
The first thing he did was he got onto the back of the people regarding the Grenfell Towers cladding situation and all of the other companies around the world, around Britain, and the buildings where the people have been ripped off and were living in danger. And he actually managed to pull it up. And this was while he was in opposition. And the first shyster who put up dangerous cladding was prosecuted a month ago.
All right. Okay,
good.
let's not go down that road. What else?
The second one was when our dear government was supplying 2 bits of vegetables to a few school kids, still while in opposition and really not able to objectify. He managed to get thousands and thousands of school children fed during COVID. I think that's pretty good.
He did. I thought it was the Marcus Rashford who managed to do that.
He went on and on until they took it up. Just as he went on and on until they took up the windfall tax. So I would like to suggest something.
No, Marcus Rashford was the school meals thing. Keir Starmer may have jumped on his little bus there, but I think it was Marcus Rashford who was the voice there. What else have we got?
Well, I'd like to make a suggestion.
I thought you were going to give me 3. That was 2.
Well, the other one was that he went on and on and on about the windfall tax, that we should get the windfall tax from the gas companies or whoever.
Okay.
And eventually the Tory party took that up and got the windfall tax.
Yeah, they were shamed. They were shamed into doing the right thing, which seems to be the only way to get them to do the right thing is to shame them into it. Yeah,
absolutely. That's why they do so many U-turns. They try it on first, and if somebody kicks off, they either bring out a new law.
So, what's your suggestion?
I think we should encourage it, because we're looking at total position of freedom. So I think we should encourage Keir Starmer and say, OK, you pulled your party together relatively. You can get things done. Please present us with some policies. You can do it. You can do it.
Oh, my God, he's not a child. He's a fully grown man. Encourage him. That's not what you want from a leader. You don't want to have to encourage them like they're a 5-year-old. They should be encouraging us. That's their job. To revivify the nation with hope and to place dreams in their minds and their hearts. We encourage him. No, it's the other way round, Ellie. That's the whole point. But good work there, Ellie. And I can't believe you don't like the choir. It is the most beautiful sound. Maidenhead. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Nick. How are you doing?
All right, thanks.
Yeah, it's the workers are working, and the workers in this country are very hard workers. The workers are working, but I know some friends, and they're not even 50, and they haven't worked since they were 20, and they're just sitting down every day. They're getting everything paid for, the rent, the council tax, and everything, and they're getting their money, and they can gamble, they can go out, and they have a better life than me, and I'm working. And they say to me,
that doesn't seem likely, Paul. It sounds like something you just made up. How much money do they have?
No, it depends how many kids they've got. No, I'm being honest. No, it's about 3 or 4 people, and they just say it's not worth working because they'll only get an extra £80 or £100 a week, and they've been sitting in council flats and getting benefits, and it's just fine by them because they don't have to lift a finger.
Right, well, it sounds like you're just reading out of the Daily Mail, Paul. I don't buy it. This country is not full of idle layabouts who just sit watching TV and smoking dope all day, living the life of Riley on benefits. I just don't buy it. York, Wayne.
Hey, how are you doing, Nick?
All right, thanks.
Nice to speak to you. Nice to speak to you again. Honestly, I love this show. I listen to James O'Brien on the morning.
Right. Why are you laughing like that, Wayne?
Because I'm all serious with James O'Brien, and then just for light relief, and absolutely, but still having some news.
A little light relief.
No, because you're going to get back to me with the researchers, so leave that alone. No, what I was going to say was about the guy you phoned up. Not the guy you didn't even know you was talking to. The guy who phoned up and said about Category C, Category D, C1, C2, and all the rest of it. And I was thinking, well, where am I? I don't know where I plant myself in these categories.
You're in York, Wayne. Glad to be of assistance. Thanks for whatever that was. Harrow, Jonathan.
Nick, hi.
Jonathan.
I had two main points to make, but I had 8 other ones. But shall I start with the main 2?
I think that's probably best. Yes.
I think I was telling the boy who answered your phone that this country's economy is so terrifying now that I keep saying to myself I will leave from January in the new year, okay?
You're going to leave from January in the new year. Well, why wait?
Bye-bye.
Leave now.
No, because, hey, don't, come on. Because I have a house that I'm renting, and I voted for Boris in 2019.
You voted for Boris in 2019, and how's that working out for you?
Because I believe a lot of the propaganda. Because I'm not as stupid, okay?
Well, okay, then.
Economy-wise, it's very hard now. I'm starting to become scared. I've got a nice car. I might sell the car, etc. But the second point is this country, economically, we're right-wing. But socially, we are very left-wing. And the walkie-talkie warriors and the ultra-feminists in this country are creating a lot of strife. You know, the police are very weak. And the mans in this country now they're very feminine because they're making them weak by the water, the water companies.
The water companies are putting something in the water that is turning men feminine. Is that what you're saying?
If you look at the mans in this country now, in 2022,
yes.
They're not as strong.
Not as strong. They're becoming a little bit more feminine because they're putting estrogen in the water. Is that what you're saying?
And the women's in this country, I'm not a sexist.
No,
okay?
Of course not.
I'm not a sexist.
Of course
the women's are very, very. You see on all the planes when when there's a problem on the planes, it's usually Western women, and I don't mean this in an offensive way.
Not an offensive way, no. But it's white women that are becoming a lot more aggressive.
I did not say white. I did not say white. You thought that because
and the men are becoming a little bit more feminine because they're putting like some sort of fruitification agent in the water. Is that what you're saying?
I did not say the white women. Now, you said white women
Right,
because
well,
maybe
because
you're
I'm
intelligent.
a very, very racist person.
But can I just say quickly that I'm not a stupid person?
You keep telling me that, Jonathan. I don't see any evidence of that. If you can provide evidence, then that's one thing. But if not, the jury is out, as Liz Truss would say. Thanks a lot, Jonathan, for whatever that was. Lewisham. Hello, Jane.
Hello, Nick.
Hello, Jane.
You know my phone? It's
No.
like the country. It's not working very well.
Oh, you mean you
So
don't ordinarily sound like this?
No, I'm not bothered what I sound like. And so I won't be able to send you any emails anymore.
Oh, well, that's okay, because
That's a
I
shame, isn't
don't
it?
read them.
Oh, don't you really?
No.
I see. Oh, well, I can't send any. You know, I have to get another phone.
Yeah. Okay,
and,
well, I'll look forward to that.
I see. And you're talking about drinks. You know, milk. Milk. You get 4 pints for £1.65.
Where?
4 pints. That's in any shop.
Nonsense.
They're about
That is not true.
165.
£1.65 for 4 pints. It's at least £1.80.
No, I saw it for. Well, I bought it for £1.65. Right, 4 pints. So that is really value for money, and it's so good for you, milk. It really is.
I'll tell you
And
what, it's just about cheaper than water. I bet you can't buy 4 pints of water for £1.85.
I know that. That's why I'm saying it,
Yeah.
Nick. And
What's curious to me is where they get milk from. I mean, does anybody actually know?
Yes, we do know, Nick. But you know, I mean, that is marvellous, isn't it? And
Well-
people don't appreciate their milk.
Yeah, people should appreciate milk.
Yes, definitely. Anyway, I've told you we've got the motoringparty.co.uk.
Yeah, you've told me this.
To sort all
You're
this out.
just repeating this now, Jane.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you know, you might have some news.
No, not really, no.
And we can go click, click, click and sort this.
Right, okay. Well, whatever it is that you just said, I completely agree in every way, shape and form. Somebody should look into that whole milk thing. Well, I mean, where does it come from? Does anybody really know? Perth. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Nick. You more or less just hit the nail on the head. That was the question I was actually wanting to ask you. Maybe I've heard so much about nationalisation on the TV and the radio. Your good selves brought it up tonight, and the one question that I just wonder about: what happens to the millions and millions of shareholders who actually hold shares? Are they get compensation for that? I have no idea. It's just a question. It's just you just.
Well, I don't know I don't know what the legal position would be, how it would work, but they would, of course, have their shares bought from them at whatever the price is at the time.
Oh, and who would buy these shares?
Well, the government.
Or the government would buy the shares at the market rate.
I guess so.
You don't know.
No, I guess so.
That's what I'm saying. It's just a guess.
Well, I mean, I'm not an energy expert, but that would seem logical to me.
Yeah. I hear what you say, but would you like could I ask you frankly, would you like these companies to be nationalised?
Yes.
Yeah, and you don't know the details of how it would be done.
Well, other than what I've just explained to you.
Yeah.
I don't know what the method of doing it. No, I don't know which stage comes before which.
Said that, aren't many, if you like, pension schemes? Don't they own? Isn't that one of their sources of income? The shares.
It's a relatively small source of income. Pension schemes don't own very many shares. I think it's like 4 or 5% of their investment is in shares, because, of course, shares are a very volatile product, and pension schemes prefer things that are not quite so dependent on which way the wind is blowing. But that is a common argument that we can't touch it because if energy companies make money, then pensioners are making money. But it's a very small amount, relatively speaking, that pensions invest in actual shares because it's such a volatile asset. Archway, hello, James.
Hello, Nick.
Yes, James.
Nick.
James.
Oh, you were talking about ex-militant and his trust. Well, now, an ex-militant of Labour did very, very well for himself. And he was sacked, of course, from the Labour Party by Neil Kinnock and became a multi-millionaire. He, in fact, he joined, I think he's gone back to join the party. And Liz Truss would say, oh, my God, he's one of us.
James, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, but it does fit in with everything else that's going on here. But I appreciate it. I really, wherever it is you're going, I don't want to follow, if that's okay with you. But thanks for the input. Bromley, hello, Martin.
How are you doing?
Good, thanks.
You're a nice, patronising man at times.
Thanks.
Very educated. Now, I'm just going to talk to you for a minute, yeah?
Well, I don't know about a minute. It's not a great start, Martin. I'll have to say. What is it that you want?
Is it a Peter principle? Yeah.
Is it a what? Is it a what now?
The Peter principle.
What's the Peter principle?
Somebody who's elevated to do a job beyond their needs.
Are we talking about Boris Johnson?
Yeah, but you've been going on 2 years now. You never stop.
Well, it's a job, Martin. If I stop talking, then there would just be an echoing silence. What's more concerning to me is that you would subject yourself to something that you don't like just in order to, I don't know, give yourself something else to complain about. Is that what's going on here? Maybe it'd be better if you actually spent the rest of your life doing something that you do enjoy. Life's ticking away, Martin. Leeds, Matthew.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, I don't know what your problem is with Liz's answer there, to be honest with you. What do you want her to say?
Oh, God, not another one.
Well, I mean, you sound like a fairly sort of experienced chap.
I think it's an important duty of the Prime Minister, and I'm ready to do that. That's not really what you want to hear about how it makes you feel. She doesn't feel anything at all. Completely emotionless. Like a robot.
Affirmative.
That's not what you want from somebody who has before them the opportunity to exterminate all life on Earth. Yeah, I'm ready to do that. It's like, I'm sorry, Liz, but we've run out of red wine. Would you like some white? Yeah, absolutely. I'm ready for that. I mean, add to everything else that she's said or done, at least in the last month or so. Now, once we've started to become acquainted with her ways, I mean, it don't give me any cause for confidence. Are you completely confident, Matthew?
Well, in Liz Truss,
yeah.
To be honest with you, she's not a very remarkable politician, but I don't know, again, I don't get what sort of response you'd want. Do you want her to be emotional? About eliminating all life on Earth? Of course I do. Wait, so hang on a minute. You want the decision to launch nukes?
Matthew, the question was, how would it make you feel? And the answer was one of total emotionless. Doesn't make me feel anything at all. I'm ready to do it. That's what she said. In answer to the question, how does that thought make you feel? She replied, without emotion, I think it's an important duty of the Prime Minister and I'm ready to do that. That's not an answer to the question, is it? That's an answer that somebody who's trying to be a tough guy would give.
You're telling me you want an emotional Prime Minister making the decision whether to launch the retaliatory strike?
Yes.
That is frankly silly. Come on, you want it to be...
Okay, so here's the option, Matthew. Say nuclear weapons are coming this way. What benefit would it give the people of this country who are dead already to kill people on the opposite side of the world? How does that benefit us?
Listen, you sound like going to what I was
Matthew, how does it benefit us?
Hang on a minute.
It's like Liz Truss's clone on the phone here, not answering the question that is posed to him. Wouldn't help us at all. It's just payback. The whole point of nuclear weapons is that they're never used, because people would have an emotional response to using them. They would prefer not to. But Liz, she's all on board. Yeah, great. It's alarming times, people. It's like we're being run by children. It really is. Maybe it's just the older I get, the more the people that you used to revere, that you used to put up on a pedestal, that you used to think were better somehow, it's just like the scales are falling from my eyes. Maybe it's just because I've got very, very, very old. But these people seem like chumps to me. I mean, I'm not that bright, but these people, I mean, that's like another level. They're supposed to be the best of us. In answer to the question, how does the thought of global annihilation make you feel? Truss's response, I think it's an important duty of the Prime Minister, and I'm ready to do that, to cause global annihilation. That was her response. And I've got people on the phone here who are trying to defend that. We're doomed. I think the human race has stopped advancing. I mean, you can't go up forever. There's like a parabolic curve, and we're back on the way to being gorillas again. I mean, when you see the person shuffling down the high street with their knuckles dragging on the ground, that's a sign. Streatham. Hello, Paul.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, Paul.
Oh, hi there. I'm actually a black person, right? But I've been to Taiwan and I've been to China. And I'd like to try to give a point of view from Chinese point of view.
Okay.
I'm a bit nervous.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
The Chinese point of view. Go ahead.
Okay, so they teach their children in China that they've had 100 years of shame, okay? And over the last 100 to 200 years, they've been humiliated by the colonial powers, okay? Britain tried to force opium down their throats, okay? They had to use their land to grow opium. The original international drug traders were Britain. They stole Hong Kong, simply because the Chinese refused to accept opium. And the reason why Britain was selling opium to China is because China had tea, the only country to actually make tea, and Britain was buying tea because coffee houses were being created all over Britain, and they had to buy the tea and silk and China.
Yeah.
So Britain then didn't like this and then decided to sell opium into China. Okay, so that was one issue. And they stole Hong Kong, even though the Emperor of China, two different emperors, wrote a letter to Queen Victoria, can you please stop putting opium into our country? Okay? And then we had the Boxer Revolution, where Chinese nationalists fought against the colonial powers, and America sent their ships to take them down. Okay? In World War II, Japan enslaved 5 million Chinese people, and China lost 30 million people during the World War II, 1930 to 1945. Now, back to Taiwan. Taiwan has been a province or an island under the Qing dynasty. They found out that there's an island next to them, next to China. And many Chinese people migrated into Taiwan, okay? But also, Japan stole Taiwan from 1885, okay? And till the end of World War II. So there's a lot of Japanese people living there. They don't want to be under Chinese rule, okay? Because they're Japanese. But there's lots of Chinese people who do regard themselves as Chinese.
Well, I wonder what the Chinese people in Taiwan think of the prospect of being under Chinese rule, because the people in Hong Kong don't appear to be enjoying it.
Well, listen, I've been to China, and I'm sure, the system is not brilliant. I mean, but it has worked for the Chinese people over the last 40 years, okay, the system. Because I used to work for a telecoms company, and when I heard that we had a branch, massive mobile company, we had a branch in China, I was very shocked. But then many companies, BMW, Apple, all started to invest in the 90s into China, okay? So don't blame the Chinese because all of their technologies have gone into China. They have learned, they've listened, and now they're developing their own technologies. It's not China's fault. It is America, Britain, for investing into China in the first place. If they didn't want it to happen, if they didn't want to make use of the cheap labour.
Yeah, well, that's the point. Yeah, we offshored production to China because we could make cheaper goods there because they paid their workers less than we did. And the history that you just described is broadly what I understand is a pretty shameful past. I was forcing, we were international drug dealers. You're probably right. We were the first ones at it. So it's quite understandable that the Chinese would be aggrieved. But that's all history. What we're talking about now is what might happen to the people of Taiwan who probably don't want to be overtaken by China.
Well, many of the Chinese people there, they do regard themselves as Chinese from the mainland, okay? But I don't know the numbers, but probably some of them like the status quo. So for Nancy Pelosi to go there and stir up this trouble, many of Chinese I can imagine are not happy with it.
But do you think that America should actually organise its foreign policy over what it is being told to do by a country near one that its politicians want to visit? Because it's not as though America does not have a relationship with Taiwan. It's just this weird diplomatic maze that it has to go through where they can sell them weapons, but they can't actually recognise them as a separate entity.
Well, look, in the 70s, I'm not sure the representative to America, he went to China, okay? And he saw the starvation and the feudal system in China. The country was separated. The Dalai Lama owned, I've forgotten the province, Tibet. Feudal warriors owned certain parts of China. So this is the main point. China does not want to be separated again into these feudal and separated by colonial powers. The colonial powers had Shanghai. They had
but once separated, it's and a period of time goes by, then you are upending people's lives to recreate what used to be in the past. I mean, if everywhere on Earth did that, then pretty much every country in the world would be ours now.
Yeah, that is true. But I'm just giving you the Chinese point of view, right?
No, I understand that.
If you imagine Shanghai, right, they called it, what do they call it? Concessions. They had the French concession because the French were there. They had the Dutch concession because the Dutch were there. And China could do nothing about it, right? They had the British concession. And so when you go to Shanghai, you see all the different architectures from the different colonial powers, right? They don't want to be separated again. This is 100 years of shame for China, yeah? And Taiwan is a part of China.
Well, so it isn't, though. I mean, that's the whole point of this conversation. It is not a part of China. The Chinese want to absorb it.
In the 1970s, a representative of America saw the starvation, and China had such a weak government, okay, because of all the colonial powers inserting themselves into China, okay, that China doesn't want to be separated.
Right, so, you keep saying that, Paul, but Taiwan is not a part of China. That's the whole point of this conversation. But that was interesting. Thanks for that.
Trying to connect you. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Yes, I'm trying to connect a caller in Barnet called David. Sorry to keep you waiting, David.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I just wanted to talk today about the Salman Rushdie incident. You awful.
Do?
Yes, I do. Unfortunately, because I think it's important that we actually have a discussion about it.
Well, not on this show, though.
Oh, why not?
Because this is not that kind of show.
Well,
There's 21 hours in the day for you to have a discussion on this station about that. Can we not have 3 hours where we don't?
Well, I think, the only reason we've had this show is because the freedom of speech is a fundamental part of our country, and it is the foundation for free discussion.
Are you trying to inveigle your way into my good books?
No, but I do think that, this was a blow against freedom of speech today, and I think that,
you're still
unfortunately, countries like Iran, like Saudi Arabia...
You're still trying to drag me down this road, and I don't want to go down there.
Well, I think you should, and I think, it's a major news story that's...
I know it's a major news story, David, but we don't cover all major news stories, particularly on this show. It's, like I said, 21 hours, 7 days a week. You can have any kind of conversation and discussion that you like on these very, very important issues. Can we not on a Friday and Saturday night have just 3 hours when we don't?
Well, Nick, I have some advice for you. Maybe try doing your job.
No, this is my job. This is my job. My job is literally what I'm doing right now, David. What my job isn't is doing whatever you want me to do at any given time, like a baby. Oh, my God. What is it with people? You can't have what you want when you want it instantly, so you throw all of your toys out the pram and you slam the phone down. I swear, there seems to be something wrong with the human race. When did we get so baby-like and selfish and self-absorbed? I want. It's just amazing, isn't it? The entire human race is now children. We have barely got beyond the developmental stage of a toddler. I want. Eaton Wick. Philip.
Yes.
Philip.
Hello. Well, I had 2 points to make, if you have time for me.
Well, let's see how long the first one takes.
Well, let's do the first one quickly.
Do the first one first, yes.
Smart meters, not in your favour. They can be cut off remotely.
Well, yeah, but what difference does it make? They just send some bod out in a van and cut you off manually.
No, but it's worse than that, because it could be a mistake. Can I go on to the second
It could be a mistake. An error.
If it's remote. Yeah.
An accident.
Yeah.
Well, it could be a mistake if they send some bod out with a van.
Yeah, but you physically see them arrive.
Yeah, and then what? You repel them at the door?
Well, I had to deal with bailiffs recently, so possibly. It's no, you're not coming in.
Right, was they just cut you off from the road?
They could try.
Well, they could.
It's hard.
I seriously doubt that, but go on.
Can I go on the other point, in terms of connection? Yeah, and internet and those things.
Well, what things?
Well, obviously, if you're connected to the internet.
Are you kidding me? I am connected like you wouldn't believe.
Okay.
By which I mean, I don't mean I'm connected.
Absolutely.
Not that kind of connected.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you all right?
Be careful.
Be careful?
I'm fine.
Right, now you're threatening me. Okay, I've got no idea what the second point there was, Philip. I guess we'll never know. Disappointing. Oh, well, never mind. Be careful. Bournemouth. John.
Hello.
Yes, John.
I want to say something a bit controversial for you.
Okay.
You say that this country is not doing well, and I agree that the people are having economic problems. But when you're out in the street and so forth, there's still lots of people in the pubs, restaurants. I was out today in the Bournemouth, and they're all still out dancing.
Wow. People aren't all dead yet? Is that what you're saying?
they're all drinking, and they're all all of the restaurants are overfull, all of this.
Right, so they're not all sitting in the dark in their cold and damp hovels with their heads in their hands, moaning piteously to themselves. So everything's fine. Is that your position?
I think one of the you people's Corbyn supporters.
I'm not.
I think you had a point because we went too far to the right in this country.
Went, as in past tense.
But I also think the problem is that this country has got enough people who are quite rich. So your sort of nationalized energy and all of this, which I think you were correct about a long time ago. But I apologize because in the past I used to think that he was wrong on these points.
Right.
But overall, it doesn't seem like the country, the shopping, they're all out in the skirts and everything. The ladies, they're wearing... They're wearing the
clothes
skirts.
and all sorts, yeah.
But no, you're making the fun of this. I'm not saying they should not wear the clothes, although the way some of them are going, it's hard to tell. But you can't speak freely in these countries.
You can't what?
You can't speak freely in these countries.
Well, it sounds like you're speaking freely to me.
Oh, I can't say the main things I want to say because immediately you're accused of being homophobic, misogyny, all of this. You have to.
What's homophobia got to do with what you're talking about? You want to wheedle that into the conversation? A bit of light homophobia and racism and sexism? Is that absolutely necessary, John? Even if it's off topic, you just can't help yourself. Enfield, Ali.
Hi, Nick. How's it going?
Good, thanks.
Nick, I just had to give you a call. I want to start by saying that I'm a huge fan. I do enjoy listening to you in evening times.
Thanks.
But I should point out that I think you may be mistaken with your view towards Iran. The points that you've made out, I feel like you're reading out from talking points of an Iranian regime. I'm Iranian myself, and I had to migrate from Iran to here because of the regime. And I think you may be wrong about the sanctions.
In what way?
I think you're mistaken in that if you think they're the medicine, there are sanctions against towards medicine.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that there are sanctions on medical supplies. Specifically, there are exemptions for those, but because the international banks and so on don't want to fall foul of American sanctions, they are refusing to work with the Iranian regime, which means that they don't have the money to buy them.
But yes, I have information from Iran that if there are sanctions and they're affecting the medical supplies. However, that's not because there's anything stopping the regime from buying medicine. It's simply because that the regime chooses to use the sanctions as an excuse to sort of vilify the West. Because if the regime does want to actually go ahead and buy medicine, there's nothing stopping it. It can use its reserves in that are being held in Western banks to actually buy medicine. There's nothing stopping it. Now, setting that aside.
But if they have reserves in Western banks, surely that would be part of the sanctions. They wouldn't be able to access that money, no?
Yes, they can't access it to buy Apple iPhone and stuff like that, but they can use it to buy medicine. There's nothing stopping them. Now let's move aside. Let's move on to another subject. You were speaking to Negar Mortazavi, and you said that she's a journalist. But I think that's another mistake. Negar Mortazavi isn't just a journalist. She's sort of a mouthpiece for the regime in Iran, and she's not objective at all when it comes to issues regarding the regime in Iran. Now, let's consider this issue. The regime in Iran chose to use as a new mother and her child as a bargaining chip with the UK government. Now, imagine if that regime had access to nuclear bombs. What do you think would happen?
Well, we have access to nuclear bombs. Just because you have access to nuclear bombs doesn't mean to say you're going to use them. I mean, you seem to be not entirely without bias yourself.
Sorry, could you say it again?
I'm saying you're accusing the journalist that I was talking to of being biased, but you don't appear to be lacking bias yourself.
Well, yes, I'm not biased. I'm against the regime.
Right, but aren't most people? Yes, but aren't most people in Iran also against the regime? I mean, that was the point that I was trying to make to her, and she appeared to agree with me. So you are on the same page there.
No, we're not on the same page at all. Because she was insinuating that the sanctions that are placed on Iran is the sanctions that are stopping Iran from providing medicine. I said that, and I was reading from the Human Rights Watch report on the sanctions on Iran. It's not from the Iranian regime. This is the internationally recognized Human Rights Watch organization. Yes. There are also organizations that have looked into the sanctions that have pointed out there's nothing stopping the regime from supplying them, using its reserves in the Western banks to buy medicine. Now, the other thing
we've just been through that. If they have reserves in Western banks, surely that falls under the sanctions.
Okay, let's agree to disagree on that point. But let's have a chat about this.
Well, it is. I'm afraid we haven't got time because I'm already past the news. But if we just go around in a tight circle back to your initial premise that they could use money in Western banks and they can't actually access that money in Western banks, well, that means your argument kind of falls apart. Tenbury Wells. Wow. Where's that, Nathan?
Yeah, I'm here.
Where's Tenbury Wells, Nathan?
Tenbury Wells is Worcestershire, WR15.
Is it?
Yes.
Carry on.
Let me just turn the TV off.
Oh, yeah, take all the time you need. It's a live show. Turn the TV off. It's back.
How are you, Nick? How are you doing,
I
mate?
am great, mate.
Brilliant. So I've got 11 places in the UK.
You've got what?
I live next to my dad.
You've got what now?
I've got 11 places in the UK and 5 abroad.
You've got 11 places?
Yeah, 5 abroad. And I speak 6 languages.
Do you mean you have 11 homes that you rent out?
No, I've got 11 places, mine.
What do you mean you've got 11 places? What does that mean? Houses, homes. And you don't rent any of them out?
No, I don't need to, mate, if I'm honest with you.
Why do you have 11 places?
In the UK, and I've got 5 abroad.
Yeah, you said that, but why? Why would a person have 11 places?
Do you know what? I've kind of been prepping, because I think the world's gone to SH1T, if I'm honest with you.
Right, okay. All right, thanks a lot, Nathan. Thanks a lot for that very, very believable story about your 11 places. Please tell me more. Bloomsbury, Sophia. Oh, God, right out.
Good evening, Nick.
Right out the gate.
It is tough. It is very tough.
Very, very hard, yes.
I think that it's cruel and irresponsible for these rail strikes to continue.
Right. And what would be your solution to discontinuing the rail strikes?
Well, yes, to bring back the
death penalty,
the non-privatised rails. When I was councillor, and my
you were a councillor?
Yes, and the
in what manner did you counsel?
For Bloomsbury, and my agent Chris Bryant is now.
You had an agent?
Yes.
How much did they take?
Is now the deputy whip. We have very good relations with the non-privatised British Rail.
The non-privatised British Rail?
The normally British Rail. Once they were privatised, these people seem to be thinking of pie in the sky. But what do they want? I mean, I've had salaries not pay for 3 major university computer centres and a multinational.
Right. Very interesting. Can we go back to the pie? What kind of pie is it that you have in mind?
Well, not fish pie.
Oh, no, I was thinking more of a dessert with cream. I don't want fish in it. Fish with cream. Oh, that's just awful. Who would want
apple
that?
Pie.
Oh, now we're talking apple pie.
Indeed. It's,
All right, well, leave it with security, and I'll eat it later. I'll eat it in the break.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not real, is it? There's nothing real they're going to gain from it.
Well, I certainly hope that this isn't real life, and that I must be under some sort of hallucinogen. Or, you know, something of that order. Because if this is real life, I won't be angry. I'll just be disappointed. Exeter. Hello, John.
Hello, Nick. How are you?
Great, mate.
I've been greatly entertained by your earlier callers today.
I know. Haven't they been off the hook?
One of them said that the world is going to SH1T. And I was sat here thinking, is that a new postcode?
It is, yeah.
Where are we going? But also, I share your concerns about Liz Truss and her finger hovering over the nuclear button. Because isn't it true they give them like a football, a nuclear football?
Well, that's what the President of the United States briefcase is called. It's called the nuclear football. Because I think it's because it gets passed like an American football from one person to the next.
And women don't understand the offside rule, so how's that going to work?
Oh, my God. Not another listener with material.
Oh,
no. Painful. He waited 56 minutes to say that. 56 minutes on hold to say that.
What?
Chertsey. Hello, Tony.
Hi, Lenny.
Tony.
Yes, I'd like to talk about water supply, because that seems quite an interesting subject at the moment. And this idea came from a mate of mine who used to be the night manager of a hotel nearby in Chertsey, in fact, by the Thames. And his idea was to build a shiny new aqueduct from up north, where there's loads of water, to down here where there isn't so much. But this is not only an aqueduct just for moving water. The idea with this is that it has sort of radiating spines. So we have an up-to-date system of canals. You know, so if the Victorians can do it, we could do it, and we could do it much better, I think, and easier, and with the idea of moving goods around on a canal network, because you know, it seems to me that goods don't have to, and supplies don't have to get to places quickly; they just have to get there in time. And a closed network would do that much more easily than clogging up the roads. And another aspect that is quite advantageous about this idea is that the new things for moving things around, barges, could be powered by engines that don't use fossil fuels. Now, I think that's a tremendous advantage, and I'm so enthusiastic about this that I intend to lobby engineering up MPs, or at least one.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with that. Tell me how it works out.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you,
What do
Tony.
you think about the idea, though?
Back to canals. I'm not sure about that. I mean...
Well, moving water as well. You know, so you have a big aqueduct from north to south, and then radiating canals from that spine, so that you have a transport network that moves things around as well as water.
Well, I think it's a nice idea. I can't fashion a detailed response to it, having only just heard it, but I appreciate it, Tony. Thanks for that. Liz Truss has batted away a backlash after a recording emerged of her complaining that British workers lack graft. The Tory leadership frontrunner swiped at the working culture in parts of the UK outside London, not inside London, outside London, comparing the graft of people working outside London unfavourably with China. China. So how's voting Tory working out for you, good people of the North?
Oh, fabulous.
Is it everything you ever dreamed of, you lazy, good-for-nothing layabouts? In the remarks, when Liz Truss was Treasury Minister between 2017 and 2019, she warned that for Britons to be richer, productivity must improve. Pressed by reporters in Northern Ireland, whether she believes that British workers are not working hard enough, Liz Truss replied, "What I believe is that we need more skills in our country, we need more capital investment in our country, we need more opportunity in our country. That is what I would deliver as Prime Minister." She says, "We need to help more people get into work. We have a number of people across the country who are currently economically inactive." Yeah, people in hospital beds for a start. Drag those malingerers out the door. She says, "What I want to do is help those people get into work and make sure we're creating those high-wage jobs in our economy." Yeah, that's what she's all about. High-wage jobs. I mean, has anyone asked for a higher wage lately? And how has the government responded to that? With great vengeance. She said, "I am fundamentally on the side of people who work hard and do the right thing. Those are the people I want back." Back? From where? Rwanda? It's that high-wage, high-skill nonsense they keep saying while heading the country in the opposite direction. Whatever they say, just think the opposite of what you've just heard, and that'll be pretty much what's what the truth is. High-wage. Whenever anybody asks for a decent wage for a high-skilled job, the government immediately trots out the same old argument. Well, nurses don't get much, which is not an argument for, let's say, train workers to get less. It's an argument for nurses to get more. But that's not the way they put it. It's like, oh, you should be grateful for everything you got. Look at the nurses. They get nothing. Have to lick road clean, wit tongue. And... I can't do any more of that. I mean, it seems to me that what we're being driven to is a low-skill, low-wage economy. I mean, they keep going on about charter cities and these free ports, and that's exactly where that goes. Low wage, low skill. And they're desperate to get us there, too. Oh, just can't wait. And in a low-wage, low-skill economy, a maximum amount of profits go to those at the very top, and the rest of us are asking, "Please, sir, can I have some more?" And getting the answer, "No, no, 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 no." But when asked about this, former Cabinet Minister and Liz Truss fan Sajid Javid said he didn't know the exact context that the comments were made from Liz Truss, saying that British workers were lazy and lacked graft. He said he didn't know the exact context the comments were made in, and stressed that British workers are the most hard-working in the world. How can these people come out with this nonsense? British workers are the most hard-working in the world. Really? By what measure, Sajid Javid? Hours worked? Amount of calories used? Concentration levels applied to the job? How exactly are British workers the most hard-working in the world? And how do you square supporting Liz the Blunder Truss while thinking the exact opposite of what she believes are the qualities of British people? And it's not the first time she's said this. I mean, she's tried to say, oh, well, you know, please disregard everything I've said on any issue previous to this moment in time. I agree to disagree with Liz Truss, said Liz Truss. But it's not the first time she's said stuff like this. That famous book, Britannia Unchained, which was written by the gruesome bunch of Tory frontbenchers, quote, "Once they enter the workplace, the British are among the worst idlers in the world. We work among the lowest hours, we retire early, and our productivity is poor. Whereas Indian children aspire to be doctors or businessmen, the British are more interested in football and pop music." That's a direct quote from this book. That's what they think of us. That's what they think of you. The worst idlers in the world. Everything is always in the world with these people. We're not averagely idle. We are the worst ever. And still people vote for them. It's just mind-blowing. That book, by the way, written by Liz Truss, Dominic Raab, Kwasi Kwarteng, Priti Patel. A gruesome lineup. And those are the people that have been running the country for the last 12 years. That's exactly that. That's exactly who that is. And by some miracle, the rich have got richer and the poor have got poorer. Wow, it's almost like a plan. But despite the fuss, Truss was delivered a major boost today with the latest Conservative home poll saying she's firmly on track for victory on the 5th of September. Oh, no. She is going to be the next dear leader. She was 60% to 28% for Rishi Sunak in a survey of activists. One activist said, what are they thinking? What are they thinking? In the recording obtained by The Guardian, Truss can be heard saying there's a fundamental issue of British working culture. Essentially, if we're going to be a richer country, she says, and a more prosperous country, that needs to change. You need to work harder for less money. She said there was a slight thing in Britain about wanting the easy answers. But what actually needs to happen is more graft. It's not a popular message, she says. Well, it's not a true message. She also said that productivity was very, very different in London from the rest of the country, claiming this was partly a mindset and attitude thing. She hates you, you people of the North. She said productivity was very, very different in London from the rest of the country, claiming it was partly a mindset and attitude thing. She doesn't like your attitude. She says if you look at productivity, very different in London from the rest of the country. But basically this has been an historical fact for decades. Essentially it's partly a mindset and attitude thing. It's working culture, basically. This is the best bit. She says if you go to China, it's quite different, I can assure you. Well, yeah. Might that be because China's a dictatorship where you get ever so slightly killed if you don't do as you're told? Wow, that sounds like a dream come true, eh, Liz? And that's where we're going. Meanwhile, the actual reason that Brits have a low level of productivity is none of the reasons that she just said. It is, of course, because we have one of the lowest levels of investment. What happens with companies in this country is that all of the profits go directly into the pockets of management and shareholders. They don't invest in research and development. They don't invest in shiny new pieces of equipment. They're just taking as clean profit. They're just sucking the juice out of the companies that they run because they're not going to be running them for very long. What do they care? They only, like your average chief executive is in a place for 5 years in which they have to make out like a bandit before they get parachuted into another country to do the same. It's less like being a manager, more like being a vampire. That's the reason that the British worker has a low level of productivity. It's not because of the worker, it's because of management. But of course that doesn't play very well with the management class, which is what she is going for. And it plays particularly badly with the donor class, who are the ones that are, scraping up all of the extra profits that in another better run country would actually go on improving the business to improve its prospects in the long term. Nobody's remotely interested in the long term in this country. Just grab as much as you can, as quickly as you can, and then fly away to some hellhole tax haven, which you'll have a headquarter in an empty building with a Union Jack fluttering from the government offices. That's what we do in this country. And she's complaining about something that is true. It is a problem in this country. We have low productivity, but she's blaming it on the little people, not leprechauns. Typical. I mean, it really is. The 1% have 99%, and even that's not enough. More. How do you like it? How do you like it? Leeds. Hello, Mick.
Hi, good evening, Nick. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, I'm just
watching the Tories now on TV. It's like watching a live episode of Spitting Image. An absolute bunch of wasters and idiots. But I've got a really good idea to bring the prices of food down and petrol and energy. Why don't we all agree just to move our business to one retailer, one energy company, one petrol station, and that will kick in competition again and bring the prices down?
Right, so you want everything to be provided for as a monopoly by just one company?
If we move our business to one company, that'll trigger the other companies to bring their prices down and trigger competition again, because at the moment there is just no competition in the markets. But if we move our business to one company, that will trigger the other companies to reduce their prices to get the business back. It's simple economics.
Well, it'd be very, very difficult human behaviour to engineer. It would mean that we're all acting as one, which ain't going to happen.
Well, you could kick it off here to Nick tonight
that's what I'll
by
do.
starting this campaign.
Right. Well, leave it with me, Mick.
It's all in your hands, Nick.
Yeah, okay. I am personally responsible. No pressure. Thanks a lot, Mick. Rochdale, Wayne. An ecstasy of fumbling. Yes, Wayne.
Hiya.
Yes, Wayne.
I just started to tell you, because I can't believe what actually happened to me, right?
What?
I've got a scooter, right?
You got a scooter?
I move about on that. And I parked up in front of my door. I've got this light that if you go near it, the light comes on.
Wayne, I have no idea what you're saying. What are you saying?
I'm trying to explain to you.
Yes.
I'm saying that I had this light, right, that if you come near the scooter or the front door, a light comes on. Isn't it?
Not really.
It's a security thing.
Right.
Right. And I was in the front room, and it kept going on and off all the time.
Yeah.
And I checked the front door. I couldn't check out what it was. I thought I might catch something that got near it. But it was a slug walking across in front of the scooter. He picked up a slug.
A slug. So the slug was walking over the sensor and setting the sensor right. Okay, all right. Thanks a lot, Wayne. Lewisham, Jane.
Hello, Nick.
Hello, Jane.
You know, I haven't got a television, and I am so pleased because I haven't seen any of this, have I? None of it. But I don't want to. But anyway, Nick, you are brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And you know, Nick,
what?
We have got the motoringparty.co.uk.
What's that?
Have a look at it.
I won't.
On the web.
Tell me what it is.
It's a political party.
The motoring party? What kind of a party is that?
Have a look at it
No,
on the web.
I am not going to. You can't make me, because I don't want to.
Okay. Well, everybody else can look at it, can't they?
No, they can't. I forbid it.
Nick, do you like milk?
Do I like milk? Who doesn't like milk?
There are some people that don't like milk, but I really, really like milk and mackerel.
Milk and mackerel. Yeah, but not at the same time, though, right?
No.
Oh, you could have a mackerel smoothie. Mackerel flavoured ice cream. I think that somebody should invent that.
I see.
Why did you ask me if I like milk?
I just wondered.
Oh, you were just
like
wondering.
milk?
You were just wondering. You were going, wonder if he likes milk. Wonder if he likes milk, you were thinking. Well, that's perfectly normal, Jane. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Cheers, my dear. for whatever that was. Now, on the amount of money that has been offered, let's talk about that with Neil Hamilton. Neil is the leader of UKIP and a former Conservative MP. He joins us now. Hello, Neil.
Hello. Hi.
Well, as Alan was saying, the amount that has been offered, between 8 and 9.5%, would have settled any strike in recent years. But in recent years, we haven't had this sort of cost of living crisis. So it is justified, don't you think?
Well, these kinds of disputes are the inevitable consequence of inflation at the levels we're currently experiencing. You know, I remember back in the 1970s, and we had inflation at 27%. And all right, things were a bit different in the 1970s, where the unions had far greater powers to do damage to the companies they were negotiating with than they do now. But I do think that, given that the average pay increase that has been given to British workers in recent months is 5%, an offer of 8 to 9.5% seems to me to be pretty good. But it all depends on the individual circumstances of cases with the companies that the unions are in dispute with. And it may be that in this case, CK Holdings, the ultimate owner of the Felixstowe port, is a very profitable company, and they may calculate that the cost of the dispute will be outweighed by the prospect of a settlement. Who knows? But I don't think that most people will think that the company's offer is terribly unreasonable in current circumstances, because although the headline rate of inflation at the minute is anything between 10 and 13%, what really matters is what's going to happen in the next 12 months, not what has happened in the last 12 months. The inflation we're currently enduring is a consequence of the lockdown and the way it was financed, the government borrowing money as it was going out of fashion, and the Bank of England being asleep at the wheel when it should have been keeping inflation down to 2%. So, but next year we'll be, on current predictions, in a recession. And so the economic circumstances will be very different next year.
Which really sort of underlines the importance of getting a really good inflation-busting pay rise now, because by all accounts, and I think your own, you're agreeing, that it's not going to get any better anytime soon.
No, exactly. I fully understand the union's point of view in all this, wanting to fight for their members. Obviously, that's what they're in business to do, same as the rail unions. Despite the massive disruption it causes in everybody else's life, you can't blame people for wanting to maintain their standard of living. But, we can't all maintain our standard of living when we've been living on tick for the last 2 years. You can't just close down a large part of the economy, finance that by just printing money, and expect that things will carry on as though nothing had happened. This is the problem with the kind of inflationary policies that the government has had, although they didn't seem to understand the mechanism by which inflation is created. And we've got to recognise, I think, collectively, that we can't just carry on expecting to maintain a standard of living when we haven't worked in order to maintain that. If 25% of the economy effectively has been closed down for the last 2 years, we can't expect to maintain the same overall living standards. But of course, within the average, there will be companies and sectors of the economy that can afford to pay increases, and there'll be sectors which can't. Whether Felixstowe Docks is in one of those sectors or another is a matter of debate, and that's what this dispute ultimately is all about. But I do think there's a cost in this for the workers as well. If they go on strike for 8 days, they won't be paid, and that, I understand, will cost them on average about £800 or £900 a person. So they've got to be pretty sure that any dispute which involves them making a sacrifice of that kind has a good chance of succeeding. Otherwise, they're going to be significantly out of pocket.
Well, in that respect,
I believe the average pay in Felixstowe is £43,000.
So apparently so, yeah. But it's quite well paid. But I mean, when people make this sort of argument, they always say, "Well, let's compare it to the nurses. Why are they complaining they're getting so much more than the nurses?" Which is not really an argument for them to accept less money. It's rather an argument for the nurses to be paid more, surely.
We can't all be paid more because what you're paid depends upon supply and demand in the area of the economy that you're working in, and of course that varies. So we can't take a sort of blanket view of these disputes. Everyone is an individual case. But it does seem to be on the face of it that if they've been offered an average pay increase of between 8 and 9%, then given that inflation, the headline rate is, say, 11% or so at the minute, there's not far short of that. And I think that most people will think that this is a dispute largely about very little. So,
but it's not, though. I mean, surely with the possibility of fuel prices hitting £6,000 a year, it's vitally important that they get the kind of deal now that would be able to see them through the next couple of years, because you would think that if they get a deal now, then they're going to be unlikely to be able to negotiate another one within 12 months, which is what they'll need. And it is interesting, isn't it, that the people who are being asked to suffer through this in order to help the country get through this sort of economic malaise are always appear to be the ones that have the least. The top 1 or 0.1%, they seem to be making out like bandits. There's no hair shirt for them.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, the average pay in Felixstowe is $43,000 a year. The average pay in the UK is $26,000. So I mean, these are quite well-paid workers on the whole. But obviously, they don't want to see any reduction in their standard of living, nor does any of us. But for those of us like myself who are self-employed, we're dependent upon what we can persuade people to pay us for the services we perform, and we don't have any unions to negotiate for us with anybody. If we don't work, we don't earn. If we don't produce the goods, then we don't get paid. So it's a difficult situation, which is inevitable in the kind of inflationary circumstances we are now. But next year, things will look very different, in my view, because the economy is slowing. Looking at the money supply figures, there's going to be a significant retraction of the economy in the next 6 to 9 months. And so the unemployment will rise. And I think the circumstances in which these pay negotiations are taking place will be very, very different. Now, it may be that Felixstowe Port is a very profitable company, and they can afford to pay the sort of increases that the union is arguing for. In that case, they may well be taking a sensible decision from their own point of view. But if this strike goes on for more than 8 days, bearing in mind that Felixstowe isn't a kind of just-in-time port, most of the goods that are imported through Felixstowe are not time-sensitive, then the companies that use Felixstowe will simply find other ways of getting their goods into Britain. So it may not ultimately be to the benefit either of the company or the workers there. So nobody will benefit at the end of the day.
All right, good to talk to you, Neil. Thanks for that. Neil Hamilton, the leader of UKIP. Chingford. John.
Hello, Nick. You okay?
Yes, John.
Yeah, so calling about this jiggery pokery we've got at the moment with the privatisation of the energy firms. I looked at an article in The Independent back in 1996, and the privatisation of the energy firms was a massive flop back then. So what these people don't learn is that history just repeats itself over and over again, except this time, there were people with their fingers on the button. And unfortunately, it's only going to go like your whatever the previous caller said, SH1T and tin pot, basically. That's what it is now.
Okay, it's just like word salad, John. Some of what you're saying makes sense, but not in the order in which you're saying it.
I'm just trying to express a point at the end. It's going to tin pot.
Right, okay. Everything's coming up roses. I believe that the patriotic phrase you're after there, John, is everything is coming up roses. Or as Liz Truss would say...
We have never had it so good.
Never had it so good, so says Liz Truss, the next leader of this country. Cheam. Sue.
Good evening. It was just a brief thought, actually, that considering Liz Truss, or Truss, whatever her name is, used £500,000 in order to get to... Australia on a private plane. I'm wondering how much her wallpaper's going to cost once she gets into number 10. because she certainly is a lady who likes to feel that she's entitled. So I'm just wondering if that's something that's going to be in the press next. She's probably going to, if he had gold wallpaper, she'd probably go for platinum.
Yes. No, she'll cover the walls with diamonds.
Yeah, diamonds. But I mean, a more hideous creature you couldn't wish to find. But
well,
yeah, I'm beginning to wonder if this is all intentional. All this, saying one thing and another thing and another thing, because it seems to be the way the Tory party seem to work. It's the old BS baffles brains trick that people do.
Right. Well, it's certainly baffling my brain. I just can't believe that this is actually real. Is this real life, or am I hallucinating? All right. Thanks a lot, Sue. Well, it was something about the most hideous creature that anybody has ever seen. Swindon. Hello, Carrie.
Hello. Is that me?
It sounds like you.
Hello. Yeah, I was just wanted to ask about the sun, right? And
the
fact
sun?
It's so hot. It's so hot, right?
But I've talking about the newspaper or the celestial orb?
The celestial orb.
The celestial orb.
Yeah. But I'd like to talk about the moon, right? The last 3 nights, the moon has been bigger than ever, and not only that, it has been glowing more than ever, right? Which the sun absorbs the light to make it glow. No, the moon absorbs the light to make it glow from the sun. Right. And if it is absorbing that light, it's also emanating that light, which is why it's making it hot at night as well.
Yes.
The global one. This is not a jet stream coming in from Spain what's come across to this country.
Right.
I don't think.
Okay.
It seems a little bit strange that the moon and the sun is in such position.
So what's your theory then, Carrie?
The theory is that because the moon, for some reason, has got closer to the planet.
Yes.
And the sun, for some reason, is in a position where it is giving more heat to this side of the planet,
right?
So that more sunlight is being directed onto the planet in the night and day.
Well, you're making
we're drying up.
You're making a lot of sense.
Yeah, and just when we had that previous heat wave, when everybody thought that was going to be it, I seem to remember that we were in an alignment with all the planets.
Yes, that is correct. Yes, magnets caused that.
Yeah. Now, something strange about this, right?
Well, you got that right.
Maybe we should be looking at the alignments of the planets and go back to 1976 as well and see what the alignment of the planets was.
See what the alignments of the planets was in 1976. Well, I think you're onto something there, Carrie. I'll tell you what, I want you to keep an eye on it and give me a full report as soon as something crops up. Promise me you'll do that.
6 years' time, right?
Well, I don't know if I can wait for 6 years. Can I have an interim report sometime next week? Promise.
Well, no. Make a request. Make a request for somebody else to do it.
Oh, somebody else to do it. Oh, right.
Yeah, somebody who's more professional.
You're washing your hands of the entire situation. You brought it up, but you don't want to actually go through with it.
Well, I'm going to research.
You're very, very
more.
busy right now.
I'm going to do more research. I've got more research to do.
Okay, well, that's great. I'll look forward to reading your paper.
Yeah, if it doesn't get...
if it doesn't get published, then we'll know that the blob, the woke lefties, have scuppered it at source.
Actually, this could also be the beginning of the ice caps. The ice caps melting.
There's more. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, and that would be because, not of global warming, that would be why the ice caps would melt, because the planet would be being subjected to more heat by the sun.
More magnetic rays, yeah. Okay, well, that's excellent, Carrie. I'm glad that you brought that up. This is an educational show, isn't it?
No.
Beckenham, Stanley.
Oh, hello, young Nick. Now, listen up, mate. I just been listening to Carrie.
Yeah.
If I was to describe him as a trans-world airline tourist, euphemistically, he was a very very euphemistic trans-world airline tourist. Have you got any...
What are you talking about? Trans-world airline tourist. Yeah, okay. Another listener with material. Let's have Birmingham. Mark.
How you doing, Nick? And just checking in for some decent therapy, my mate. Oh,
yes.
Right. Joel, tell me about it. Today, I took my friend to see a psychologist, but he get this right. Came in, went in, yeah, okay, sits there, he looks like Bamba Gascoigne. Tweed suit, glasses a lot. He says to my friend, why are you depressed?
Mark, is this a joke?
No.
It sounds like a joke.
It's not a joke, I'll tell you.
Okay, then.
Anyway, we sit there, and he says, well...
Now, hang on a minute. Wait. Your friend went to see a psychologist, but you were in the room too somehow.
He wanted me to go into the company. He doesn't trust anybody like that. You know what I mean? Go lock me up. I said, no, they're not, mate. It's a psychologist. It's not a trick psychologist. So he goes in and he goes on, why are you depressed? And the night starts crying. And I said, mate, go easy on him.
Right. This is a joke, isn't it?
No, it's not a joke. I'm serious.
Now, if it actually ends up being a joke, you do realise that this joke will have been pre-ruined for your convenience.
No, it's not a joke, I'll tell you. Anyway, he says to him, why are you depressed? So he starts saying about the cost of living, can't afford this, and his gas is going off, and this. So the geezer says, so what are you going to do then? And he says, I don't know, that's what I'm asking, yeah.
Yeah. He said, I feel like a pair of curtains. Is it that one?
Yeah. Basically, pull yourself together and all that. I said, you shouldn't say things like that, matey. Anyway, he starts on me, and I said, I haven't come to see you, mate. I said, it's my mate here. Anyway, in the end, I said, look...
Yeah, okay, Mark, this just sounds like a joke. It sounds like a long and torturous route to a joke. But I wish you and your pretend mate all the best. Say, how do you do to your psychiatrist for me? Thanks a lot, mate. Tinmouth. Hello, David.
Good morning.
Yes, David.
Yeah, it's just, you made this comment about the rich making the money from the poor, out of the poor.
Yeah.
I know personally...
Well, I didn't say they made it out of the poor.
Well, through their efforts. There's a chap...
No, not necessarily through their efforts, but they couldn't have done it without them, is what I'm saying.
Well, they only coordinated and made it work. There's a chap in Plymouth who started off selling from a briefcase in one of the car parks in Plymouth and is now with his wife worth £2 billion.
Right.
Through sheer hard work and effort. And you look at Alan Sugar, another one.
Yes, but they could not have got to where they are without the effort of the poor.
Well, that's an impossibility.
What is?
Anyway, well, he pays decent salaries, so they're not poor. He brings in industry that's supplying with his raw materials. You've only got to look at other systems in the world.
Okay. Do the people that he employs have their rubbish taken away? Yes. Who takes the rubbish away? The people who earn among the least in society. Do the people who work for him rely on the NHS? Yes.
Yes.
Who makes the NHS run? Porters, nurses, that kind of thing. Do the people that work for him rely on the police doing their job? Yes. And you can keep going and going and going. And all of the people in this country are propped up by the people at the bottom. It's the people on minimum wage who stack shelves and clean up after us and all of the rest of us. But to deny that is actually the truth is what a lot of rich people do. They think that they only got to where they are without any help from anybody of any kind whatsoever, which is totally, completely and utterly untrue. Mostly, it's luck, David.
No, it's not.
It is, absolutely.
It's choice. It can be choice.
It's
can I give you
luck. Life is luck. And only those who have made it like to convince themselves that luck has nothing to do with it, that they only got there by their own genius and hard work. Impossible. It didn't happen.
Just listen for a minute rather than just going on and on and on. You can be extremely funny when but you can get a bit hysterical. However,
this is me hysterical.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Right.
Let me give you
I had
another
no
example.
idea I was in hysterics, but go on.
I hear sometimes you almost can't stop yourself. However, immediately after the war, I was born at the beginning of the war, so when I was about 8 or 9, I was extremely fortunate because I had an auntie who worked on the packing belts at Cadbury's. Now, any chocolate that came through Cadbury's that had that white blur on it, they give away, and we used to do chocolate. Now, my auntie, she was not the brightest thing in the box, but she really enjoyed her job. She was with all her mates having a little chat and going through, and she felt herself lucky. Her husband worked damned hard. They couldn't have children, so they adopted a child. So they
Right, what's this got? This is it's a nicer history lesson, but what's it got to do with then what we're talking about?
It has a thing that it isn't necessarily that the Cadburys relied on the backs of the poor. Have you ever been to Cadburys in Birmingham? Have you been to
surprisingly not. No, it's not really on my list of to-do things. Going to Cadburys in Birmingham. No, I haven't, David. I don't really understand what that has to do with what we're talking about.
Well, it has everything to do with it because his born little village was built by the Cadbury's family for their workers and made very, very... And the sports facilities... When I was a student at college in Birmingham, we didn't have...
right, but what's this got to do with what we're talking about?
You're talking about the exploitation of the...
No, I was not talking about the exploitation of the workers. I was talking about the fact that the rich of a certain type don't want to pay for the upkeep of the poor, despite the fact the rich would not be in the place they're in were it not for the work of the poor. It's like they deny the contribution that 99% of the population make, without which they would not be in their exalted place. That's what I'm saying, David. And I don't really see how you've got an argument with that.
Well, I have the argument by saying that they're exploited, but they're not. You look at
again, you're putting words in my mouth. I'm not saying they're exploited. I'm saying they're ignored. I'm saying they're just rubbed out of the picture entirely, as though their efforts account for nothing. That's my point. And I'm really not interested in going on about Cadbury's. But I wish you and your chocolate-loving granny all the best. Brighton, hello, John.
Hello, Nick. Yeah, I mean, these important items should stay in Great Britain. They belong to Great Britain. Yeah?
It's a case of we've had them for a good long while. Let's let the matter rest.
Yeah, I think we've collected them over the years. We've done a deal with somebody. We've bought them. We've done a deal with whoever was the ruler then, and we own them, basically. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I'm not saying they shouldn't be returned in certain circumstances, but I think that some of these countries were basically they were tin pot dictatorships.
Well, exactly
We've
right.
protected them over the years.
Well, you might put it like that, but you're also saying essentially that Governor, it's a fair cop. I did buy these stolen goods, but I don't deserve to go to court because I bought them, regardless of whether they were stolen in the first place.
Well, I don't think that applies. Saying they were stolen applies to countries. If they're the spoils of war, that you don't. It's not really called stealing them. It's just.
But it is though.
Victory. No, well, it's not. It's just victory.
Okay, so it's another way of putting it.
Fight, decides what happens, and if they've taken some of the items, and So
all right, but if somebody takes your car off your driveway, John, and they declare it's victory, does that make it okay?
Yeah, but if it's the government, then they decide the rule, and if they say it's okay, then it probably is okay. Do you think they can change the rules?
Right. Well, I'm not sure many people would agree with you about that specific example, but thanks for that, John. Wallington. Hello, John.
Hello, Nick. About Liz Truss.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that she did the answer that she did. Because how would you feel if Liz Truss went to the old Remembrance Day Sunday parade to lay her wreath, and behind her was a soldier holding the red button, like Putin did. Like Putin did a couple of months back. Right. And when he was sitting on a helicopter, he had the red button in front of him. It's them that stirring all this up. They're starting all this.
Who's they?
If she'd have given... Who's they?
Yeah.
Putin.
Oh, right.
And the Chinese.
Root and toot.
They're the ones... Yeah, they're the ones threatening all the nuclear.
Right. Well,
we never mentioned it.
Well, we'll show them. Hey, John, I say we nuke the entire site.
No. I hope she never has to do it, Nick. Come on, be serious for a minute. But you know, what answer would you rather that she give? Oh well, I'll think about it for a little while and I'll let you know.
Right.
Of course, she's going to have to say yes. I'll use it because they've got to know that we're not going to be scared. Because they're threatening us with being nuked all the time.
John, what are you talking about? To engage in nuclear war means that everything on this planet could die. And you're insisting that it's a good idea to be all for that.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, by being weak and showing weakness to him, he's the one going around with the red button in front of him and
they all do.
Soldiers holding it behind him.
They all do.
We don't. I've never seen our Prime Minister do that.
Wait, they don't have an actual red button. It's in a suitcase.
Putin had it with him.
Right, they all have it with them at all times. Look at the President of the United States of America. They call it the football. It always goes with him. It's not an actual football. It's a briefcase.
Okay, fair enough. But you don't have to display it the way he is.
Well, he's a nut. It doesn't make any difference whether he displays it or not. He could have it on a chain around his neck. What difference does it make?
Okay. So what would you rather she said when she was asked that question?
Well, that sounds great. I'll smash my little fist on that red button at the first available opportunity. It's just not thinking about it. It's just ridiculous. To just blurt stuff out. I mean, she's supposed to be a grown-up, apart from anything else. She's the next leader of this country. The question was, one of the first things that will happen when and if you become Prime Minister, you'll be ushered into a room, a very private room at number 10, and there will be laid out in front of you what are called the letters of last resort. Your orders to our Trident boat captain on whether you, Prime Minister Liz Truss, is giving the order to unleash nuclear weapons. It would mean global annihilation. I won't ask you if you would press the button. You'll say yes, but faced with that task, I would feel physically sick. How does that thought make you feel? So it wasn't a question about whether she would do it or not. It's how she feels. She replied, like a robot.
Affirmative.
I think it's an important duty of the Prime Minister, and I am ready to do that. It's like she can't wait. Mind you, I mean, the state of this place, it couldn't get much worse, could it? I say we flatten the lot and start again. Who's with me? I am joined now from Los Angeles by Charles Feldman. Charles is a presenter for KNX News 97.1. Hello, Charles.
Hello, how you doing?
Good, thanks. On the subject of guns, let's talk about this Alex Jones fellow, shall we?
Yeah.
Because if people in this country aren't familiar with him, he's what you'd call a shock jock. He's the most shocking of all shock jocks. And part of his shtick is to make people feel that the end of times is coming, and then sell them beef jerky or vitamins or some other kind of nonsense to weather out the coming storm, which is a very, very successful business. On one day alone, he made $800,000. So he's got millions and millions, much of it made by making his dingling fans think that the school shooting in Sandy Hook, at which 20 children and I think 6 adults were shot, was actually all staged by the government in order to enact gun laws so that he would take your guns.
Yes, and even went so far as to call the parents of one of the children who was killed. I believe the phrase he used was crisis actors. Suggesting that they were just sort of playing a role. And what the jury found, you were giving an interesting description, and an accurate one, I should add, about what he did or does, I guess, for a living. What the jury, in effect, found, they simplified it, and they said that, what he really did for a living, he was a professional liar. He made his money by making stuff up. He's a bright guy. It's impossible to believe that he actually believed the stuff he was saying on his shows. But he said them, and and got a lot of people in this country to agree with him and to think that what he was telling them was true. And but he made that bargain with the devil, didn't he? Because in exchange, he made a lot of money, but he also hurt a lot of people.
Yeah, and now he's been ordered to pay in damages, and this is not the only court case that he's facing, because there's other parents who want to punish him similarly for good reason. He's been ordered to pay, I think, just shy of $50 million, but he's pretending now, or he's protesting that he actually doesn't have any money. So might these people actually see a cent of these awards?
Sadly, there's a I was going to say probability. I'll amend that and say there's a high possibility that they won't, because the way the bankruptcy laws are sort of functioning in the U.S. anyway. I'm guessing, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm guessing that most of his money went to corporations that he set up, and so the findings against him, the punitive damages, would be against probably not him personally, but the company that ran his show, and he's declaring, as I understand it, bankruptcy, and once he does, a bankruptcy judge could very easily say, well, the guy doesn't have, or the company that ran his show no longer has enough money to pay these parents. And it's not unusual for people to get punitive awards for all kinds of cases and never collect a dime.
God, that's depressing.
Well, but I tell you, it is. But I tell you, but I think the parents themselves would say that they still want a victory, even if they don't see any money. I don't think any of these parents would think for a second that the money, no matter how much it was, would compensate for the loss of their child. I think what they really wanted was they wanted a jury to call him what he is. And that is, as I said before, in effect, what the jury said was this guy lied. He lied consistently. He lied in a hurtful way, and should be punished for it. And even if the parents don't get any money at all, I suspect that moral victory will do a lot for them.
Yeah, somewhat tainted by the fact that almost the moment that he walked out of jail, he called the entire trial a fix orchestrated by George Soros. He called the judge crooked. The jury didn't have any touch. Were not in touch with reality. He put a picture of the judge being consumed by flames on his own website.
Well, yeah, because he's got his adherents, right? He's got his followers, and so he's looking toward his future. And I suspect that he figures that if he's going to make a career going forward, he can't renounce everything that he stood for all these past years, because then he's got no economic future, does it? So it doesn't surprise me that he said those things. And at some point in the future, if he keeps saying them, perhaps he'll run into another legal issue, and maybe with the same outcome.
And just briefly on the subject of legal issues, what about Elon Musk and Twitter? Where's that?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, the on-again, off-again sort of romance between Twitter and Musk, right? Well, you know, first he was buying it, then he wasn't buying it, then he said he would buy it if they can prove that the numbers of people who are on Twitter are actual people and not the bots. And the last was, I think it was yesterday, he in effect challenged Twitter again, the corporate structure, to produce the goods, in effect, to prove to his satisfaction that he's buying something, if he buys it, that has the numbers of people that Twitter claims it has. And, you know, he's gotten to the point, at least in this country, where people are kind of, you know, shrugging it off and thinking, you know, well, maybe he's just, you know, fooling around because he's trying to get out of the deal or decrease the value because he promised to buy it at a much higher price. And the more he sort of indicates he's walking away from it, the more the Twitter stocks go down. And he's maybe hoping that he can walk away with it at a bargain price. But it is kind of becoming almost a parody, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I do remember that he fronted Saturday Night Live once, which is a comedy on American television. And Elon,
yes, appropriate, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Elon Musk, I think he, after sort of introducing himself, with kind of like an odd character, he said, "Well, you didn't think I'd be normal, did you?"
Well, you know, when you got that kind of money, I don't even know what normal is. I mean, when you have that kind of wealth and you can pretty much do anything you want, including, I guess, going into space, I don't know. How do you define that kind of normal?
Well, quite. Thanks very much, Charles. Good to talk to you. Charles Feldman, presenter for KNX News 97.1 FM, joining us there from Los Angeles. Weymouth. Hello, Patricia.
Hello, good evening. I would just like to say that I haven't been in a very well position at the moment because all this worry about the expense and everything, I'm going to be quite open about it. And I did try to take my own life this year. And I tried to starve myself and stay in bed because I've lost my husband. But I've got over it now. But I do think people are being very greedy because could people live off of £12,000 a year, pay their council tax, do everything, and when people are on benefits, they don't pay their council tax, they don't pay for their teeth, like I've got to. And there's so many things that are so wrong in this country. But I must admit, I did try to take my life this year over the worry of I'm all electric, I've got no gas.
So, right, okay, but you, by that method, then it sounds like you would have sympathy for these people who are trying to just do what is necessary in order to get by.
No, I haven't got sympathy for them because you've got to work hard and you've got to pull yourself out and say, I'm going to do it.
But that is exactly what they are doing. They are working hard. And
yeah, well, so did I all my life. But I mean, I am.
But how then can you not have sympathy for them, though, Patricia?
Because at 82, I am still taxed up to my eyeballs, and I've only out of a £500 pension from British Telecoms, the government is taking £100 from me.
But why then would you not have sympathy with people who are on your side?
Why? Because people. Could you live off of £12,000 a year?
Again, you seem to be making their point for them. What they're trying to do is make it through the recession, the oncoming recession, by not taking a cut in their wages. I'm very sorry for what it is that you just told me and the trouble that you've had, Patricia, but I don't quite understand your point other than they're doing better than you currently are and they shouldn't be greedy. I don't really understand. Lewisham. Hello, Jane.
Hello, Nick. We really are on the brink more than you think. The fuel companies want to help, and that's the way to do it.
I'm not entirely sure that's true. What do you mean they want to help?
Yeah, they're quite happy to, to help and get through this situation.
On what do you base that opinion? They want to help.
Well, they've said it. they've said, that we're making our profits and we're quite willing to share our profits.
No, they haven't
But
said
the
anything of the sort. To share their
I've been
profits.
listening. Oh, they might not have used that word. Where the think of the
British Gas. If what you mean is British Gas have offered to donate 10% of their retail profits to help customers, then that is like giving a giving a starving man a peanut.
No, we're talking about Shell, the big oil companies. They have said we're making all this profit, and if the government wants to take some of that profit to distribute to us, that's fine.
Well,
that's what they've said. But the government doesn't want to. This is far bigger than you're thinking, right? They're just not interested in England. They're just not interested in us.
Who they?
The people that got at Greta.
The people that got at Greta? Well, you mean the fossil fuel lobby?
The global warming lot. The globe is gonna warm. It's gonna change. It always has, and you have to manage that properly. And
how can you manage it?
They are not. You have to reduce world population with contraception and not nuclear weapons.
Well, let's end on that moment of agreement that it would be better to reduce, if reducing world population is our aim, it would be better to reduce world population by using contraception than by using nuclear weapons. I agree with you, Jane. Greenford, Paul.
Hello. Yeah, I think given time, I think the government can iron out the creases. I think they will be able to sort out the economy. But maybe the workers do have a point. But it seems to be going in the direction of a 1926 general strike, or similar, like you said, to the 70s with the 3-day, 4-day working and the electricity blackouts,
Well, the proposals technically fall short of what's described as a general strike. A motion by Unite would task the TUC with making sure that industrial action is synchronised or intentionally staggered so as to have as great an impact as possible. But it wouldn't be what is called a general strike. It would be somewhat less than that. We'll know more, I guess, after the TUC Congress, which is going to be in a couple of weeks' time, the 11th of September, for about 3 days. Peter Taft. Peter is the National Political Secretary of the Socialist Party. Hello, Peter.
Hello.
So what were your thoughts then when you read what Nicola Sturgeon was saying about renationalising energy companies?
Well, of course, we don't support Nicola Sturgeon's overall policy. She's really, the SNP is a pro-capitalist party, but on this occasion, she happens to be more correct than what you've quoted about Keir Starmer being doubtful or even opposed to nationalisation. This is a catastrophe that we face in Britain. We have to take into account the lives and conditions of ordinary working class people. We're in for, according to not for any Marxist or socialist, but according to the Financial Times, the organ of big business, we're in for prolonged inflation, which will result in the largest fall in household disposable income on record. And Britain has no good options. That's the actual phrase that they use. And amongst them is this scandalous increase in energy prices that's going to result in untold misery for working people, and particularly to the very poorest. Look at the position of older people. There's a report in the press today that libraries can expect to have a big increase in people just coming and sitting in libraries to keep warm in what promises to be a bitter winter. And actually, on this point, Gordon Brown is more correct is more in line with Nicola Sturgeon and with ourselves than, unfortunately, is the present leader of the Labour Party, because he's come out in favour of the takeover, the state takeover of energy resources. He says temporarily. I'd go much further than that. I would say it should be taken out of the hands, for once and all, out of the hands of greedy capitalists and shareholders who have no other interest than feathering their own nest. It's a scandal what we're likely to see in Britain if this goes on. And it's not going to be accepted. There will be mass resistance, as there was on the poll tax. That's why Nicola Sturgeon is making the point that a vote began in Scotland and it continued in the rest of England and Wales, and we played a big part. That is militant, which then became the Socialist Party, in organising a mass non-payment campaign. And something of this kind, with all the difficulties that it implies, is on the cards unless the powers that be, the capitalists and their government and their representatives of all stripes, do not retreat in the face of this mass indignation that's developing amongst working people today.
Well, Keir Starmer, for his part, he has said that what would be best would be to, for every single penny to be directed at reducing bills rather than going through the long, torturous process of renationalising at the moment. Is that not the sensible thing to do at this point?
Well, why does it have to be a long process of nationalisation? It could be nationalised in 24 hours. If the conditions are bad and they are disastrous, I've lived almost 4 decades now, 4 decades on this planet, and I have not seen a situation as bad as this, or I've not seen a worse position, let's say. This is an urgent question. I mean, the working class and the poor are rattling the gates of power, and they're looking for action. They're not looking for warm words. You know, this campaign has been launched, enough is enough. Well, what does that mean? You have to translate that into concrete action. And if the government does not act, give them a lesson in mass anger, in mass mobilisation, of mobilising working people, and they will resort to this. Even those who are not affected, they're outraged by the injustice of it all, that you've lived a long life, and now they're faced with terrible privation of being cold in the winter. And anybody who's experienced that knows what it's like. Most poor people have a fear of that. And not just the poor now, but sections of the middle class and so on are facing the terrible problems that arise from capitalism, which is controlled by a handful of coupon clippers who control industry and control the levers of society and concentrate the wealth in their hands. We're talking about a handful of people who control the wealth. The people who are the majority are the ordinary working people who are raising their voices and are about to go into action of mobilising against this government, like we did with the poll tax, when we mobilised the campaign of something like 12 to 13 million who did not pay the poll tax. And once that had happened, the poll tax was withdrawn by Mrs. Thatcher, the so-called Iron Lady. We reduced her to iron filings because of the mass campaign. I myself was pulled up before courts, went to the Old Bailey and was condemned by one of the judges there. But we were right, and the judge that condemned me was wrong, because the poll tax was nullified by mass action, not by the words of leaders, of moderate leaders of the Labour movement. And by God, Starmer is one of the most moderate of all moderates in the history of the Labour movement. And if he doesn't act, he acted bad enough when he stopped Labour MPs from giving solidarity on the picket line, which is an absolute scandal, to the rail workers and so on. That's the job, or supposed to be the job, of a Labour leader.
Well, no, surely the job of a Labour leader is to actually get the Labour Party into a position of power from which they would be able to change the course of the country from that
yes, I agree with that.
direction it's going at the moment. Well, you change the course of the country by winning an election, but what's making it more difficult for him to do that, surely, is the Labour Party splitting into various factions and doing what it specialises in and fighting amongst themselves. The Conservative Party, at the right time, will get all of their ducks in a row. They'll all start speaking from the same hymn sheet, and by that method, they'll win again.
No, that does not follow. I don't agree with the argument that you followed. And after all, Gove, who was once a buddy of Boris Johnson, now is supporting Sunak, has attacked Liz Truss and the section of the Tory party that she represents. They are divided. The capitalists and the owners of wealth are divided in what is to do. This is a very good opportunity to show in practice what the Labour movement can do, and that is by standing up, not with warm words about the possible election victory in the future. Yes, the standing of a Labour has gone up in the polls, but not because of what Keir Starmer has done, but because of the mass resistance that's developing and the demonstrations and the determination of some of the trade unions.
You might be right with it. It's not a vote for Keir Starmer. The current either 10 or 15% ahead in the polls that they're currently at. It might not be a vote for Keir Starmer. It might be just a vote against the Conservative Party.
That's right.
But why? But why on earth?
Not the Tories.
But why on earth then do neither the Tories nor the Labour Party actually fall behind what appears to be the majority public will to renationalise not just the energy companies, but the buses and the rail and the water companies as well? I mean, it's not by a small amount that the public, the general public, even the
be taking out a subscription to the Socialist Party.
Even the Conservative voters themselves are massively in favour of renationalising the energy companies and the water companies. So why on earth does neither the Tory party nor the Labour Party suggest doing what the majority of their supporters want them to do?
Well, because, as Michael Gove said, in relation to Liz Truss, he says she's on holiday against reality. I mean, that's their programme. But what excuse is there for Keir Starmer, who's supposed to represent Labour, the working man and woman, the downtrodden, the oppressed? That's how Labour developed in this society.
But what's
he's not represented. Then he's talking out the side of his mouth.
But what's interesting, though, the problem that he has surely is that if you look at who voted for the Conservative Party in the last general election and the one before that, it's the poorest among society. You can't. Not some. The majority.
That does not follow. There was still a substantial section who were not seduced by the false arguments of the Tories.
A substantial section, but the biggest, hang on a minute. Wait a minute. The biggest demographic that supported the Conservative Party last time were not the richest. It's the opposite of that. It was the poorest. So that surely is Keir. Hang on a minute. So that surely is Keir Starmer's dilemma. That what would be ordinarily considered natural Labour supporters, they don't support the Labour Party.
The workers that the Labour Party moved towards the right.
No, it's not. It can't possibly be that. It can't possibly be that they have rejected the Labour Party's move to the right by voting for an even more right-wing party. That makes no sense at all.
Well, it does. Unfortunately, that's if you look at history, you will see unless the Labour movement and unless the Labour Party stands for a radical alternative, when has Labour won a majority? 1945, with a radical programme. In times in history when the Labour movement has been prepared to stand up, the Labour Party itself was created on the backs of ordinary working class men and women who stood for a fair wage for the job that they did, for decent housing, for education and so on. That could not be attained within the limits of an outdated system like capitalism, which is not production for social need, but production for profit.
Well, let's assume that the majority...
is put primarily, you never get support from working people.
But let's assume that the majority of the people in the country do not want to vote for socialism because just the very mention of the word gets people running away. So let's assume that we have a choice between another 5 years of the Conservative Party, or 5 years of an admittedly less than perfect Labour Party. That is essentially the choice that we're faced with. So,
it could happen. You've got a point there. It could happen that holding their noses, not being convinced 100%, they will vote for the least worst alternative. But that does not mean to say I cannot then, in all honesty, go before the audiences I speak to or in the labour movement and so on and say, well, this is going to deliver the goods. Starmer, if he continues on this path, will do what other right-wing leaders of the labour movement have done, and that is, promise much and then disappoint in office because they do not take hold of the levers of power.
But
the real levers of power, the economic levers of the companies, of the banks and so on, with democratic control.
I understand your position on that. Yes, you've said that. But see, this to me is exactly what is wrong with the left. It's almost as though they engineer their own downfall time and time and time again because of some sort of masochistic streak that runs through them.
There's nothing masochistic about it. It's a thought-out, logical...
There's nothing logical about it.
You're asking us to accept the status quo.
No, there's nothing...
before our eyes.
There's nothing logical about wanting one thing and yet engineering the opposite to actually occur, which is what the left are doing right now. You have a choice. You either support the Labour Party against the Conservatives,
I was a member of the Labour Party.
Or you split...
I was a member of the Labour Party.
Okay, but
on the basis of that, I had that position that we could change it from within. The Labour Party then, along with the general mood that developed amongst the capitalist class, moved towards the right. And when we began to take action to defend working people in struggle, whether it was strike action, which is what the working class is doing now, of strike action to defend workers in struggle, to defend housing, to defend against the attacks on us, such as the poll tax, we organised a mass movement. You haven't taken that point up. It wasn't just a little group.
But we're talking about history now. It's almost an irrelevance. If it happened even last year, it doesn't make never mind anymore. We're talking about what's
in history.
Well, yes, of course, but we're talking about what's going to happen in the future. And I'm just saying, when the Labour Party when the left and the centre start fighting among themselves and splitting the vote, as is happening right now, then the right wing know exactly what to do to win an election and what the left and the centre... Well, it does, though. I mean, we've just had 12 years of it.
No, but the point, yes, and that was down to the fact that the Blair government, which organised not just on the economy here, but the war in Iraq, which created the mass demonstrations, the greatest demonstrations in British history. That was not our doing. That was not the left who was responsible for that. That was the right. And Gordon Brown and the rest of the Labour cabinet went along with this. We opposed them then, as we're opposing them now.
But when you say it's the right, you actually mean the centrist part, the centrist part of the Labour Party, not the right wing, which is the Conservative Party and UKIP and so on.
I'm talking about right wing Labour.
Right. Well,
we're not arguing here over terminology, over points of, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. But I'm talking about right-wing Labour.
The right wing of the Labour Party, which
no different to the Tories.
That's completely untrue. How can you say that the right wing of the Labour Party are no different than the Tories? And even if that was true, you have a choice. You can either have another Conservative Party, which I'll assume that you don't want, or you can, hang on a minute, or you can have a less than perfect Labour Party. And it seems that the left wing, if it's not perfect, they don't want anything to do with it, and they'll just stew in the delicious liquid of failure for another 5 years.
No, that's just not true. The fact is, you're saying, well, they're different to the Tory party. Remember, the government at Labour, who introduced tuition fees? It was the Blair government. And when the youth demonstrated it, and then the coalition government was carrying it through, increased it and so on, then the young people came out onto the streets and protested, and we were there with them and fighting against it. It's like a massive.
I think that you're proving my point again by just saying that because it wasn't perfect, we don't want anything to do with it. But again, you have a choice.
It was a scandalous attack.
Well, that may be that may be true. But what followed the Labour government of Gordon Brown and Tony Blair was 12 years of Conservative rule.
Yes, and we opposed that.
But you could say you might say that you opposed it, but some people might also say that you caused it.
No, that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous argument. You know, if we were not the ones who were attacking working people. Unfortunately, Blair and Brown, by a whole series of attacks on working people, including the Iraq War, which you've not answered, that produced mass disillusionment. It wasn't us that caused the mass disillusions. We were still arguing for a vote for Labour. And what about the privatisations that are taking place? The truth of the matter is that the Blair and Brown government imitated the Thatcher government and imitated Tory government in carrying through privatisation. Privatisation has led to this catastrophe we now face in water, in electricity, in power, and so on and so forth. They don't have the levers in order to solve the problem. I mean, they will have to be compelled under the pressure of mass movements to go over, to take over different industries, and that will come in Britain. We're absolutely confident of that.
Well, it seems
it's not working.
Well, it doesn't work when we're dealing with a monopoly. That is absolutely true. Peter, it's been very entertaining. Thanks very much for your time. That was Peter Taft, the National Political Secretary of the Socialist Party, who I was talking to some while ago. Westminster. Hello, James.
Hello. How are you?
Good, thanks.
I wanted to go back to defend poor Peter Taft and stick up for him a little bit. He's right, at least this far. I'm a living, breathing example of exactly the kind of voter he described, who, if you don't give me a minimum reasonable Labour kind of representation, I will vote for the Tory party to punish the people who've let me down. Absolutely. I calculate.
That makes no sense. So you will harm your own prospects just in order to get back at someone who's not going to know that you have lodged a voice of complaint against them.
You're right, they won't know. But look, the vote is a very blunt instrument. It's not a scalpel. It's a sledgehammer. And it's the only one I don't have a scalpel, you know?
But they're not going to register it as a vote of protest. They're just going to register it as you prefer the Conservative Party, which, from what you're telling me, you don't. It makes no sense.
Well, there's another thing I should interject. I'm not a party card-carrying party member. I don't go to party meetings, and I'm just a person who goes to the polls and votes.
Right.
And is normally typically going to vote on the left, but it's not as though I have people I can call up. So there are different kinds of labor and leftist activists, and there are voters, and then there are activists, people in the party, and then there's the parliamentary party.
But let me see if I've got what you're saying is right. You would ordinarily vote to the left, but because the Labour Party is not perfect in your mind, you are going to vote for the right-wing party. That I just can't understand that.
Perfect isn't the word. I don't expect any party to be perfect. There aren't any perfect parties, but a party has to be good enough for me to vote for them. And if they get below that minimum, then yeah, I will vote for their opponents just to give them a slap in the face, which you can say they'll never feel and never know.
No, you are giving yourself a slap in the face.
No, I'm not. I'm going to be just the same either way.
Well, no, you're not, because you will be living under a party whose policies you do not believe in, who are acting out with your interests.
Excuse me, but if the people in Labour who I don't like and don't agree with because they're too far to the right get in, I'm going to live under that party I don't like either way.
No, you're not.
This is
That's saying that the Labour Party is the same as the Conservative Party, which they absolutely, totally, and completely are not.
They can be different, but not different enough.
Well, okay, all right. Well, we're going around and around in a circle, and I still don't get it. But it's not a unique point of view, James. It's one that just fries my mind. I just don't understand. But, yeah, like I said, there's a lot of people who think and act in that way.